Okay, let's see. That's off, that's off, that's off, that's on, and it looks live. Alright then, let's do it. Hello! Shadowcat back with more Babylon 5. We did a pretty good job last time. We got through, I think, about half of the races, so that's good. Still don't have a live background up and running yet. I just haven't had time. Frankly, with the last 2 weeks literally being holidays back to back, it's just kind of thrown my entire schedule off. And I spent the bulk of my free time over the week trying to get RimWorld running again. So that was fun. It is, by the way. So, if you're following the RimWorld series, that should be back up and hopefully better tomorrow. But that's not important right now. Today we're working on Babylon 5 still. We're working on races still. I'm going to pull up everything that we need to work on here in just a moment. However, while I'm doing that, I'm just going to go ahead and say that if you're here and you're not already subscribed, go ahead and do that. If you know somebody else who's also into either Starfinder or Babylon 5, go ahead and share this with them. Otherwise, though, if you like me, like what I'm doing here, leave a like on the video, you leave a comment down below. If you're going to leave a comment down below, though, might I suggest that you go just like one step further and join the Discord. Why? Well, because you can leave like comments there all the time. That's always an option. Also, if you would like to play with us, you got to join the Discord, because that's where we do the playing. So, I look forward to seeing you there. And I look forward to getting into this. So, I think I've got everything else ready. That can go away. Alright, we'll go ahead and bring everything in, and hopefully it all works. Because God knows things had not been working lately. So, that should be the browser. And that should be the spreadsheet we're working on. Perfect! It's actually working. Excellent. Alright. And I do have people in the chat this morning. I see that Blizz is here. Hello, Blizz. Good to see you. I see that JP is here. Hello, JP. Good to see you. JP says, come play with us. Well, there you go. You heard the man. Come play with us. In addition, I may be starting to look into to Pathfinder 2nd Edition. I'm not ready to jump over yet. I'm not necessarily sure that Pathfinder 2 is worth the time yet, but I'm starting to look into it. Part of it is that I'm resistant to change, and I'm not ashamed to admit that. I don't like change. However, at the same time, I also like the complexity of the older games. Like, one of the reasons why I'm very resistant to change is that I was playing Dungeons and Dragons when the 4th edition came out. Okay? And anybody who was playing Dungeons and Dragons during that time when 4th came out, yeah, 4th edition was awful. It was repugnant. And so nobody wanted that. Nobody asked for that. And that was what really kind of killed the idea of upgrading for me. Now, I realize it's not entirely fair, because eventually there had to be something new. There was going to be something new. I mean, the game that I started playing was 3rd edition. That would imply 2 previous editions, not to mention chainmail. So, obviously, you're going to get something new. You're always going to have people that are going to be resistant to it, but when they screwed up with 4th edition, I think that killed a lot of people, and it was kind of a massive endeavor for them to actually win people back for 5th edition, which is massively successful, even though 5th edition is still pretty reductionist, at least as far as I'm concerned. And JP says, I'm from the 2nd or the 2E era. I'm so sorry for you. You have my condolences. I would give you a purple heart if I had one to give you. Nobody needed to go through that. But okay, we're going to get into this. So, before we get into the rest of the races, we'll go quickly over what we did last time. Which doesn't look like much, but there's not a ton of races and species in Babylon 5 to begin with. And so, it's not too bad. For the Membari, we did do 3 separate races for each one of the casts. It made sense, because each one of the casts is going to prioritize something different. That's not to say that they don't have certain things in common, but they all have different things. So we did those. We have one for the Centauri, which the Centauri are going to be interesting. Just the fact that they get the occasional vision, I like it. We got the Narn, and the Narn really are not all that special. They're just tough, which is fine. We did the Abai, who are fish people. Actually, they're more like frog people. Either way, close enough. We did the Drazi, and the Drazi I thought were going to be a lot more interesting. Turns out they're kind of not. They are reptilian. They are a little bit tougher, but that aside, they're not that different. And we did the Gayam. Now, the Gayam are insectile, which is cool, and we finished up with them last time. They get a bonus to Constitution because they're bugs. We actually modeled them after the Shirans in Starfinder. We just took away their telepathy. So they're going to get a bonus to Constitution for their exoskeletons. They get a bonus to Wisdom for their hive mentality. A penalty to Charisma because they're weird. And they get Communalism, which, if we look at the Starfinder races... races, here we go. Starfinder races, and we come down to the Shirin. Now, the Shirin are a lot different, but they do have this communalism. They're used to working with others as a team, once per day, as long as an ally is within 10 feet. A Shirin, or in our case, a Gayam, can roll a single attack roll or skill check twice and take the higher result. Advantage. So, that's cool. The other thing that I need to add here, and we didn't add it last time, but we do need to, is that they breathe methane. And that's why they have to wear the encounter suit. They cannot live in our atmosphere. And JP says, because they're weird? Yes, they get a -2 to charisma because they're weird. Okay? People find them naturally off-putting. That's the same reason why things like elves get, a bonus to charisma. Is it because they're naturally, more friendly? No. Elves aren't friendly. Elves are pompous and superior. But they look pretty. And if you've ever followed politics for any amount of time, you know that looking pretty is sometimes all it takes. And Blizz says, somewhat like Tholians. Yeah, kinda. Kinda like Tholians, except they don't have nearly as many legs. Alright, so that takes care of the game, and we're going to move on to others. So, with that being said, who's next? If we scroll down, there's the Gayam. Next is going to be the Grome. Now, frankly, I don't even remember these guys. They were not a very prominent race. But let's keep in mind exactly how we're doing this. What exactly do we need to make a race? We need to have a home world. We got to have some idea where they come from. We need to have something about their biology and physiology. And we need to have something about their culture. Something that makes them unique. If they don't have all three of those, I can't make them into a race. And so it says here, the Grome were members of the League of Non-Allied Worlds. Later, the Interstellar Alliance. They are one of the races permitted to compete in the Mutai. Wait, I remember that episode. That was like, did these guys show up in like literally a single episode? Where else did they show up? Well, let's just go through it. We'll just go through it. It does say they have a home world, Gromac. So that's one thing ticked off. Biology. So, Grome can be distinguished from other races by the distinctive raised bone ridges above the eyes, small bone ridges at the top of the skull, layered ears. Like humans, they have 4 limbs with 5 digits on both hands and feet. Their skin is rough, thickly patterned, pockmarked, pitted, comes in shades from very dark, very light. Their reproduction is like like other species, sexual coupling, fertilization, carries the developing embryo for about 10 months. Okay. The birth rate seems to be in steady decline since the Earth year 2059, when a civil war resulted in the release of a genetic plague. So this is why they say don't mess with that stuff. However, nothing under the biology says there's anything special about them. No additional strength, no added senses, no special abilities, nothing. And while we do have something about their culture, quite frankly, there's just not enough here to make them a unique species. They're basically just human. They may be a little bit stronger, because the Mutai, that was the focus of that episode, it was a fighting tournament. It's basically a blood sport. And the reason why humans were not invited, not allowed, is because they were viewed as too weak. So they're probably on the tougher side, but not exceptionally so. I don't see enough here to justify it. Nope, I'm going to skip this one. I'm going to skip it. If you want to play a Grome, we can just use a human template and we can modify that into a Grome. It's going to be that simple. Alright, moving on. The Her. Let's see. Blizz says, other than the bone plates, I mean, yeah, but just because they have the little bone ridges doesn't necessarily make them better. See, here's the weird thing. If we go back and we look at them, we go back and we look at the Grome, we can see they have like the little bone ridges on their forehead and everything else. Now, somebody who's not experienced with biology might say, well, I mean, look at that. They have added bone plates. That certainly gives them like additional natural armor or something, right? Believe it or not, no. Like, if you talk to anybody who has ever done any kind of fighting, either street fighting, professional fighting, MMA, things like that, there are certain places that you just don't want to hit. Now, there are definitely some places that you do, but among the places that you don't want to hit is the forehead. We, as humans, actually have a massive amount of bone in our forehead. Just because, if you're going to hit something with your head, that is the most likely place to hit it. And so, naturally, we evolved additional protection on the front of our head. And we're human. And we already have that. So, having a little bit more bone plate on the front of your head is not actually that big a deal. It's just a little bit of extra bone. So it's not enough to give them any kind of bonus there. It's just cosmetic at this point. So there, if you didn't know that, you learned something today. See, this is an educational channel. Alright, moving on to the Her. So the Her were members of the League and the Alliance. Their homeworld is Androma. It is ruled by the Androma Republic. Centauri Ambassador Malari once attempted to cheat at cards with a Her, but was caught in the act. I remembered that episode too. However, is that also the only episode they were in? See, that's the problem with a lot of these races. They were only in like one episode, which is why we're trying to, filter them out. We have something on their society and culture, but nothing on their biology. Which means that we have no idea when or if anything makes them unique in any way. So, automatically these guys are a skip. Alright, move on to the Hayak. Now, these guys actually featured in a few episodes, but they're always in the background. A human species from the planet Shir Shraba, former members of the League, and they have become part of the Alliance. So they do have a homeworld. Already got that. Biology. Let's take a look. A bipedal humanoid, they can be distinguished from other races by their distinctively shaped skulls that feature two prominent lobes at the back of the head, bifurcated by a line of spotted scales that runs from the bridge of the nose, up and over all the way to the back of the cranial cleft. They possess ropey, protruding veins in their necks and high bone ridges over their eyes. The Hayak are, in general, taller than average for most races, males especially. They have stiff and sparse hair across the back of their head, down the jawline. Females can be distinguished by their 6 relatively small breasts on the front of their torsos, 3 on each side from the chest down to the waist. Like humans, they have 5 fingers. Their feet only have 3 toes. Their skin is thicker than that of humans, with somewhat scaly quality that tends to vary between what humans would consider light flesh colors to ruddy sunburned browns. They exclude an odor, which many races consider to be pungent and nauseating. As a result, when traveling off-world, many Hayak choose to wear especially scented robes to cancel out their natural scent. Their reproduction is like many other species, similar to Drazi in many ways. Once impregnated, they are pregnant for the equivalent of 15 months, which is not terribly important for us unless your character is going to get pregnant for some reason. Many of them gone. The Hayak include many telepaths, and all Hayak have some limited psi ability that enables them to exert an almost hypnotic effect through close eye contact. This ability is known to affect humans, but the same is not true for all races. Now that's interesting. If they have a natural psi ability, that could be worth our time. That could be worth our time. Now, the interesting thing is, like, they are a naturally dying people. And so if we come down here to the history, it was actually a huge plot point. It was a huge plot point in one episode. It says about 1 million years ago, the main evolutionary line of the Hayak divided, producing the Hayak doe. At first, the two fought each other over land, but they learned to live together, forming joint communities, which eventually led to interbreeding of the two races. Over many years, this became a great scandal, and at about 1050 AD, and ended with the passage of religious laws that eventually led to the persecution and then to their extermination. They were hunted down in their world until they were completely wiped out by 1462 AD. By the time the Hayak become part of the interstellar community, they edited their history files so that other races would not learn of the shame they had done. However, over time it was discovered that the Hayak birth rate was in steady decline, the cause of which was eventually found to be due to the absence of a crucial genetic component that could only be supplied through the intermarriage with the Hayak doe. With the Hayak doe gone, they seem to have paid for their genocide with the possibility of their own extinction. Now, it says possibility because nowhere in the series are they just gone. There is one race that is gone, but we'll get to that later. I do think there's enough here to go ahead and make a race. I think we can do this. So we're going to add the Hayak. Now, ability modifiers. There is nothing particularly good about them. They're not stronger, they're not smarter, they're not faster, they're not really anything. Which means we can borrow from the humans and just give them a +2 to any. And that should be fine. Hit points will be 4. Size is going to be medium. The type will be humanoid. Now, as far as racial features go, the only one that I can think of to give them at the moment is the increased psi ability. Now, what exactly does that mean? I don't know. I don't know yet because we haven't done the telepath module. Now, once we do that, I think we'll be able to better assess whether or not this is going to work. So we'll do that. As far as the other features go, they are a dying people. And because of that, they are beginning to break down, but I do not think it's in any significant enough way that I need to actually mark it statistically. I mean, I'm thinking about it and I can't think of a way to do it in a way that would be meaningful without being punishing. So I think that's where we're going to leave them. I think that's where we'll leave the Hayak. They're just going to have the increased psi ability, and that's going to be it for the moment. But that's fine. That's enough right there. Alright, so we'll leave them behind. We'll move on to the next one. So after the Hayak, we have the Iksha. So let's take a look at them. The Iksha Baronies are members of the League, and one of the many affected by the Dilgar invasion. Oh, I see the PC's in. Hello, PC. Good to see you. Let's see. One of the many races affected by the Dilgar invasion. They are fish-like in appearance. They're distinguishable by the scaly heads. However, remember what we have to look at here. We need a homeworld, a biology, and a culture. We have a homeworld of ecos. Their entire biology is this one paragraph. They are bipedal, semi-aquatic fish like aliens. They're hick? Pretty sure that's supposed to be thick. Scaly hides range in color from gray to dark green. They evolved in the shallows of the coral reefs of their wet world and eventually became air breathers. And that is it. That's the full extent of it. Even their society, it's feudalistic, which is heredity, in which its castes are determined by subspecies, and therefore having more arms equals greater prestige. Do they have more than 2 arms? It didn't even say that in the biology. Okay. It says here, the rarest subspecies are the 16-armed Ipspa, who reproduce less often than the lower classes. Mutations sometimes occur that result in more than 16 who are sterile. Okay, that's weird, but it's literally the only detail that we have. So I gotta just say that we can't do the Iksha. I mean, as much as I kind of want to, and I like the idea of a 16-armed character, it's the only feature they have. That, and I guess they're amphibious? I don't know. Should I do it? Let me know in the chat. Should we do that one? I can probably throw something together for it. But again, if I did that, having more than 2 arms is exceedingly rare, so I'd have to basically make a table to run them on. Which I don't have a problem doing. I mean, I can make that work. But we would have to make a table for the number of limbs. And JP says, definitely maybe. You are so very not helpful. PC says sure, and Blizz just laughs. So I have 1 basically abstaining, 1 for do it, and 1 that's laughing. I guess that technically means the eyes have it. Alright, fine. I'll make fish people with multiple arms. Alright, here we go. Iksha. Ability modifiers. They're going to get a +2 dexterity. Because they're natural swimmers. And so they're used to a 3D environment. That should be fine for them, though. Hit points is going to be 4, just like pretty much everybody else. Size is going to be medium. Type is going to be humanoid and aquatic. Racial features. Multi-arm. And amphibious. But here's the thing. How many arms do they get? So we're going to need to make ourselves a table here. I guess I'm just going to do it right here. Roll and arms. Alright, so JP says huzzah, and Blizz is saying 4. Oh, 4 is a start. So, 2 is going to be the most common, followed by 4, 8, 10, 12, 14, and 16, because it says that 16 is the highest that they can go. Now, obviously, that means that this is going to have to be a 1. And then 14 is going to be a 2 to 3. I'll have to reverse these numbers later, but just bear with me. 4 through 6, 7 through 10, 11 through 15, 16 through 21. Now, 21. That is the full range for our special Ikshas. However, the vast majority of them are going to be not special. So here's what we're going to want to do. We need to determine exactly how special they are. Is there anything in this that tells us how rare it is? Society, see, rare subspecies is a 16-armed. They are treated by the Ipsha. Ipsha? It says Iksha up here, and it says Iksha here, but down here it says Ipsha. I don't know what to do with this sometimes. And JP says the wear a helmet kind of special. That's kind of how I'm starting to feel about whoever wrote this page. They are treated by the Ipsha with reverence. They always end up in leadership positions. Each barony has slightly different government type, but a feudal one whose baron is ultimate. But a feudal one whose baron is the ultimate leader, overseeing countries in his domain with various lords, who form a council of lords that deals with the matters of importance. The baron may defer to the council, but has supreme veto power. Okay. Okay. Here's something interesting. In non-canon sources, the Iksha are called the Ipsha. So the most important difference is that unlike canon, where the Iksha are amphibious and fish-like humanoids, in the non-canon sources, they are literally starfish aliens in both physiology and form. So this is contradictory, and we can't necessarily use it, although I do think that I understand now why they're talking about how many arms is important. Since this is talking about the Ipsha specifically, I think that means that it has to refer down here to the Apocrypha. Which means that I have to make a very, very important decision here. Which is more important? Because if I'm reading this correctly, this only applies to the Apocrypha, and this was the only reason why we did the Ipsha to begin with. I'm put in a very... No, I'm not. I'm absolutely not put in a very strange place. No, we're not doing the we're not doing the Iksha. Okay? Sorry, but we're not doing it. I like it, okay? I'm not gonna lie. I do like the idea of starfish aliens. Okay? However, we're not doing an I like module. Okay, this is not the wish list of everything that I would like to do. If I want to do that, I could simply go back to base Starfinder and make whatever races that I want. This is to recreate, as accurately as possible, Babylon 5 in a tabletop setting. Ergo, If it comes from Apocrypha, it's out. Okay? No non-canon sources. It's the same reason why when we looked at other races that were only featured in the unreleased game, we said no. Not only is there not enough here for it, but we're not going to be building. We're only translating. So, the Iksha, they're out. Sorry about your luck. I like the idea. I think the concept is cool. I bet they thought the concept was really cool when they made the race. But they didn't know how to translate that onto a television screen. So, I get it. I do. I understand. But we can't do it. Okay, next is these guys called the Lort. They're a league race and an alliance race. Let's go over the basics. Do they have a homeworld? They have a homeworld. It's Vartas. Biology. They are bipedal, generally humanoid, that can be distinguished from other races by their armadillo-like features. PC says, "Aw, I could have made Patrick." No, because you said you were going to make 3 kobolds in a Vorlon coat. You can't do both. Alright, so anyway, getting back to the Lord as soon as I can find the right page again. There it is. Okay, armadillo-like features. Particular note is their thickly armored heads, torso, more pronounced in males than females, and the very stiff, hairless, brown-shaded skin. Like humans, they have 5 fingers, although their feet only have 2 toes. As natural burrow dwellers, they are very adept at squeezing themselves into very small spaces. And JP says, "Okay, gotta run. Have a great day." Well, I'm sorry that you have to leave, but yeah. Have a good day, JP. Oh, wait, says still have 10 minutes. Never mind, you're a liar. You're such a liar. I take it back. Don't have a great day. Anyway, I'm going to get back into this. Natural burrow dwellers, they are very adept at squeezing themselves into very small spaces. They can see very well in the dark, while bright light greatly impedes their vision. Now that's interesting. We don't see that much anymore. Once upon a time, and I'm talking about primarily back in Dungeons & Dragons 3rd edition, you did have some races that were blinded by bright light, in particular orcs. Half-blooded orcs were generally fine. However, full-blooded orcs came with light blindness. And so if they were put into full daylight, they were treated as having the dazzled condition. Now that has since been dropped in pretty much everything, mostly because it was an absolute nightmare to keep track of, but regardless, it's pretty rare. But just because it's rare, I think is actually worthy enough of making this happen, because I don't have a problem keeping track of it. If you want to play a Lort, you just have to remember that your penalty, or you have a whole bunch of penalties in normal light. Let's see. Blizz says they are moles. I guess kinda. PC says, so Riddick was an orc? I mean, as far as I know, and I'm not as familiar with Riddick as I probably should be, he had that done to his eyes. I don't think he was born that way, but I could be wrong. Then again, on the other hand, I mean, if you ever watched the movies, he fights like an orc. He's basically unkillable. So, sure. Orc Riddick confirmed. I'll go with it. Let's see. They reproduce sexually. Once impregnated, they are pregnant for 5 months. But that's about it. Society and culture. Their civilization dawned around the Earth year of 761, and many regard as a miracle they exist at all. They do have an equivalent of marriage, and once joined, males are known to be loyal to one another, or mates are known to be loyal to one another. There's not too much in society and culture that I want to go over, but the fact that it's here at all, I think means that these guys are absolutely worthy of having a race. All right, we're going to do them. We're going to do them. And Pisa says, no, I'm right. It's funny, though. It is funny. Riddick is totally an orc. It's just they built an orc. Okay, ability modifiers. They're going to get a +2 to Constitution. They're going to get a +2 to Constitution just because they are naturally a little bit tougher. I'm not going to say necessarily armored, but they can shrug off, like, probably, you know, blows from an unarmed person. So that's not additional armor, it's just they're harder to hurt. They're still going to get 4 hit points like everybody else. They're going to be medium. They're going to be humanoid. But the racial features are where they're really going to get to shine. And for that, we're going to go back to the races in Starfinder because there's one that I particularly want to look at. And that's the Ysoki. Now, the Ysoki are rat people. Small and furtive, Ysoki are often overlooked by the larger races. Yet through wit and technological prowess, they have spread throughout the solar system, like rats, giving truth to the old adage that every starship needs a few rats. There you go. So, they get more dexterity, intelligence, strength, or less strength because they are small. Makes sense. Now, they have cheek pouches that they can store up to 1 cubic foot of items, weighing up to 1 bulk in total in their cheeks, and they can transfer a single object between hand and cheek as a swift action. They have natural dark vision. They are scrappy. Scrounger. Wait, did I pick the wrong ones? I thought these guys had a special thing for working in tight quarters. Maybe they don't. Wait, here we go. Alternate adjustments, alternate traits. It might be down here. Swarmer. Here we go. Swarmer Ysoki use their small size to slip past their defenses. I think this is it anyway. Ysoki with this trait gain the benefits of flanking an opponent provided at least one other ally is threatening them regardless of position. No, it's not it. I don't see it in here. Where was it? Now I don't know where it was. Not Survivor, not No Grav, not Anthropomorphic. Maybe I got the wrong race here, but there was one. It's not the Vesk, it's not the Lashuntas, not the Kasathas. I don't know. And that's actually going to bother me now. Well, I may have to find it later. But there was a racial trait for particularly tightly packed species. If I remember it correctly, and my memory is pretty good, I believe the benefit of it was that you could move through allies, or yeah, I believe you could move through ally spaces without treating them as difficult terrain, even though you still couldn't occupy the same space. Technically speaking, and I don't usually enforce this too much, but technically speaking, difficult terrain. It's not something that most GMs really want to look up because it's kind of a pain. However, Let me see if I can pull something up here real quick. Because I pulled something up here just the other day. This is an old starship from an old game that I played a long time ago. Now, when we look at this, okay, when we're looking at this ship, we can see that there's a whole bunch of... Oh, ignore the corpses, okay? Just long story. We can see there's a lot of decoration in the ship. Now, that decoration serves two purposes. Number one, it gives us something to actually decorate the map with and to give it personality, because I can sit here and describe a room for you. However, it's a lot better if I can also just show you, which is fantastic. In addition, however, every single item that you see on the map here is considered difficult terrain. See, there is nothing stopping you from crossing from this square right here. Oh wait, I gotta scroll down a little bit. This square right here, straight down to here. Okay? You can do that. And you have the movement to do that. So if I get out the ruler here, this is a 15-foot move, normally. However, difficult terrain doubles the movement cost. So, this square, because you're climbing up on a table, is going to be 10 feet instead of 5. This next one, also 10 feet instead of 5. And then, of course, when you move into the next empty square, that's a 5-foot move. So, while the ruler says this is a 15-foot move, technically speaking, it's a 25-foot move. Now, I don't usually enforce this too much in my games, but your companions similarly are difficult terrain. And as such, moving through those areas can be a problem, unless you have a trait to get by them. And so that's kind of what I think I want to do for these guys. So, if I'll find it later on, because I know it's in there somewhere. For the time being, though, I'm just going to put on here burrow dwellers, and we'll work out the exact mechanics of that later, and then we'll put on here light blindness, where if they're in bright light, which is to say sunlight or some similar light, like inside lights are not going to do this, but if they're in bright light, they're blinded. Now, in like fantasy settings, that's usually a big deal because you spend a lot of time outside. In Starfinder, you spend most of your time on a ship, generally. And so, not usually a big deal. But we'll leave that as is. I'll find out what that trait is called later on. And we'll get that filled in. Alright, so that's the lore. I like them. They're interesting. I didn't know they were going to go in, but I'll take it. Now, this one is going to be a little controversial. So, the Markab. They're one of the younger races. They're part of the League of Non-Aligned Worlds. They are not part of the Alliance because they didn't live that long. They were wiped out by the Dropha Plague in 2259, and when I say wiped out, I literally mean wiped out. When they realized that their species was doomed, they in fact gathered together so that they could all die at once. There are, as far as we know, no survivors. Not even on a far-flung ship somewhere. Now, that's not to say that I couldn't do this. We'll look and see if there's enough to actually make a race. But depending on the time period that we play in, the Markhab may just simply not be an option. Alright, biology. They do have a homeworld called Septus, so we got that. They can be distinguished from other races by their distinctive patterns of darkened indentations over the top of their heads, flat noseless face. Like humans, they have 5 fingers, and they come in pinks and grays. Like humans, they can breathe oxygen and nitrogen. They are approximately human-sized. This is not looking good for them. Their neural system utilizes specialized chemicals produced by their yellow blood cells, which would be biochemically translate into electrical impulses from neuron to neuron across the synaptic gaps, similar to function to a Pak'ma'ra's green cells. And that's it. We have stuff about their culture, which is fine, but just looking at their biology, there is nothing here that really differentiates them from humans in any significant way. The fact that they have yellow blood cells doesn't actually affect anything. They are no different than humans in every other way. Which means that we can skip them. If you wanted to play a Markhab, we can use human information and just change your race's history a little bit. So, they're out. Next, the Ontine. These guys, as far as I know, only show up in one episode. And it's to examine the implications of science versus religion. So they are one of the many races to visit Babylon 5. They have no ambassador, which is a huge plot point in the episode. They're not even part of the League of Non-Aligned Worlds. They are a background alien even among the background aliens. So they do technically have a home world. Does this actually go anywhere? Yeah, it goes to a list that just says, hey, it's the Ontine homeworld. It says nothing about it. Biology. They are oviparous, meaning that they lay eggs. Smart to fit in the cradle hands of a humanoid. Their blood appears white when they bleed. They have internal air bladders that can become blocked as a result. There's nothing here. Okay, there's nothing here. Oh, and Blizz has to go now. Well, it was good having you here. Thank you for coming. Don't forget to come back next week, and until then, take care. And I guess take JP with you, because I think it's time for him to go too. Alright, so the Ontine, there's nothing here for them. We're skipping them. I kind of expected that. So we'll get into the Pak'ma'ra. Now, these guys are getting a character sheet. Okay, these guys are getting one. I don't even need to no, they're getting one. Pak'ma'ra. Because I know there's one thing right off the bat that they're getting that makes them different. So, one of the younger races, they're a League member, they're an Alliance member. So, biology. Let's go ahead and get into their biology because it is interesting. So, the Pak'ma'ra are large-bodied, sentient multipeds, roughly humanoid in appearance with a distinctive vestigial hump on their back. The head itself features 3 pairs of facial tentacles. Is that really it? Oh yeah, it really is it. 2 big ones in the front, medium, and then small. I never noticed that till now. 3 pairs of facial tentacles enclosing a grinding maw and an internal beak used for ingesting food. The beak can deliver a powerful nerve toxin capable of felling the equivalent of an Earth bull elephant in only 10 seconds. The Pak'ma'ra are venomous. I did not know that. Their precise anatomy isn't easily apparent, as most of them wear clothing that tends to consist of long, thick robes encircling their entire body except for their head. They are relatively slow, physically very strong, and possess multiple limbs, including 2 arms with 3 fingers and 2 to 5 toeless legs used for ambulation. Their hairless skin is extremely tough and thick and be colored in mottled hues of grayish-brown to green to blue. Okay, hold on. There's a lot there. So just in that first paragraph, or no, first 2 paragraphs, they have a venomous beak, they have 2 arms, but anywhere from 2 to 5 legs. They're octopuses. The fact that they're venomous means they're blue ring octopuses. Wow, okay. This is going to be fine. This is their reproduction. Apparently they reproduce through parthenogenesis. There you go. Infant Pakmara are born with gills and spend their first few years of life in seawater before metamorphosing to the larval and then terrestrial form, losing their gills and developing air sacs instead. So, they are not amphibious. They actually change. Now, here's the one that everybody knows about. The Pakmara are carrion eaters, subsisting exclusively on dead, putrefying animal flesh of just about any creature, alien or otherwise, including mammals, reptiles, and birds, although not saltwater fish, probably because it seems awkward. Feeding usually takes the form of once-a-week gorging on carrion, preferably 5 days dead and decayed. Their ability to eat such a wide variety of organic matter stems from their upper intestinal systems, which can destroy harmful bacteria on a selective basis, making them extremely resistant to bacterial infection. They also have a type of drink called Ermzik. I cannot pronounce that, which roughly translates to roadkill malt. Humans are advised to avoid sampling at all costs. Despite their wide-ranging diet, not everything is acceptable to the Pakmara. As a biological precaution, should they ingest anything their digestive system cannot, their systems forcefully regurgitate it. It's because of their unique method of food digestion and expulsion that Babylon 5 was equipped with special toilet facilities for Pakmara use only. This, however, may have been simply out of consideration for other aliens as much as the Pakmara. They are overlooked because of their perceived lazy and obnoxious personalities. Pakmara are extraordinarily intelligent and extremely curious. Their eyes can only perceive the infrared spectrum, and as such see the world around them as blobs of heat. They are not true amphibians like the Abai. They do not breathe water, or they do breathe water for several years, though they lose the ability. That's what I was just saying. Their brain functions in ways similar to the Marcab with specialized cells. We already read that. So we have lots and lots of information on their biology, which is going to be fantastic. We have information on their society, which is great. We can flavor them. All right, let's start putting them together then. Let's start putting them together. So, first things first, ability modifiers. So down here, it says that they are relatively slow, but physically very strong. So, if they're very slow, that's going to be a... Well, no, bonuses first. A +2 to strength. And it's going to be a -2 to dexterity. Now, those cancel each other out, so technically speaking, we still got to give them another bonus. It says they're very smart and very curious. So, +2 intelligence. There we go. +2 strength, +2 intelligence, -2 dexterity. Hit points are going to be 4. Size is going to be medium. Type is going to be humanoid. Now, racial features. This is where we're going to get into it. So, they have a natural bite venom. Now, what the DC for that is, I don't know. We'll have to figure that out later. Other than that, it says that they are multipeds. So, as a multiped, that is going to give them bonuses for remaining upright. Specifically, it's going to give them a bonus versus things like Bull Rush to be knocked down. And we'll get into those bonuses in a moment. Also, was there something else? Right. They are carrion eaters exclusively. And disease resistant. Now that should be it, but there's still a lot to unpack there. Now, the whole bite venom thing. We're gonna have to do a little bit of work here. So the bite venom, it says that it could drop a bull elephant in 10 seconds. Now, when it says drop, that could be a lot of different things, but either way, it sounds like it's going to be a fortitude save. So it's going to be a fort. The DC is going to be... And let's think about this here for a second. We want it to be... Not as much of a threat in the beginning, but we do want it to become a very serious threat towards the end. Although it is a bite, so... It is actually a bite, which means it's got a pretty significant downside to it. You actually have to get in there and bite somebody. Okay, here's what we're going to do. It's going to be 10... plus the level. Okay, the fact that you have to actually get in there in melee range and bite somebody means that we can increase the DC a little bit, which means that technically speaking... Oh, actually, no, we're not going to do a 10, because if it's plus the level... I'm going to do a DC 9 plus level. That way, at level 1, it's a DC 10. So if you manage to bite somebody, it's a coin toss on whether they can resist it, and that's before you add in their fortitude save. Which means that at level 1, they're automatically going to be starting off at a disadvantage. It's also going to keep the DC the same for pretty much every single Pak'ma'ra character. So I think that'll be okay. Now, as for the multiped part, like I said, it's going to be a resistance to being knocked prone. And so that's going to come under, I guess, the rules? We're going to go into combat rules. So, tactical rules, defining conditions, etc. . I guess we'll go into actions in combat. Maybe. Oh, here we go. Combat maneuvers. So, Bull Rush. Bull Rush allows you to knock a target backwards, which means we're going to get a bonus versus that. It's going to be a +2 versus Bull Rush. Dirty Trick, no. Disarm, no. Grapple. Should we give it to them versus Grapple? Yeah, I'll give it to him versus Grapple. So, Bull Rush, Grapple, Reposition, and Trip. So, as for carrion eaters, they only eat carrion. Now, why is this important? My players in the B team, which again, if you want to come play with us, join the Discord, come to the Behind the Screen channel, let me know if you want to come play with the B team. My players in the B team learned pretty early that food is important. As such, knowing where to get it is important as well. Now, on the B team, we have 3 current players. One of them is a Betazoid, one of them is a human, one of them is a Tholian. And one of the big discussions that we had to have at the beginning is exactly what does a Tholian eat? Now, there is not a lot of information on Tholians to begin with, and so finding out what do Tholians eat is difficult. But basically, they don't eat so much as they just kind of change out their internal liquid crystal. Either way, though, finding the materials that they need, or that the Tholian needs to eat, difficult. The way that we ended up working that out is we just used rations, but we made it so that their rations were incompatible with anybody else. I mean, the Tholian doesn't have food. It has something that it uses as food, but it's not actually food. And so you can't eat it. Now, that also means that it's a little bit harder for the Tholian to find the food when they can. And they have to use a special... They basically have to do a skill check every time they go shopping to see if they can find food. That's kind of going to be where the Pakmara are going to have to live too, because they only eat carrion. That is going to limit their ability to eat anywhere else. Now, this is also backed up in the Babylon 5 lore, because they eat in their own communities, they live in their own communities, they're separate. They're integrated, but they're separate. It means that if you are a Pakmara player, you are going to have to source carrion. Now, it does say that they only eat once a week. So that's a benefit. It says feeding usually takes the form of a once weekly gorging on carrion, preferably 5 days dead and decayed. So once a week your character needs to eat. And I suppose I should put that in here. Once a week. But you still have to source it. Now, how you do that, I don't care. If you know a place where you can actually find dead things, great. If you know, or if you have to pirate other ships and kill the crew so you can feed your Pakmara, I guess that's what you have to do then. But either way, you have to feed your Pakmara. And it's very hard to do. So there's that. And disease resistant. It's going to be a +4 versus disease. So there we go. There's our Pakmara, and I think it's looking pretty good. +2 strength, +2 intelligence because they are octopuses. -2 dexterity because they're slow. That is one thing that we also didn't put in here. It's going to be a 20-foot base speed because they are slow. So -2 dexterity, they get 4 hit points. Okay, medium, humanoid, they have a bite venom, which goes up with their level. They're multi-peds, which makes them hard to push around. They eat carrion, they're resistant to disease, and they move slowly. All in all, I think that looks pretty good. That is not exactly what I wanted to do. Right there. Okay, so good Pakmara. And unfortunately, I took up a lot of space down there, so we're just going to move on to the next column. All right, who's up next? So after the Pakmara, we get into the Yolu. Now these guys, I don't even remember these guys. They are a long-lived humanoid race from the planet Pari, previously members of the League, later members of the Alliance, noted as being the race that originated from the Muay competition. So, again, we're coming into like a species that was a one-off. PC says, party wins a fight on Monday. What are you doing? Packing dinner for Saturday. Party has to do a constitution check. No. You don't have to do a constitution check then. If you happen to be in the same room while they're eating it, then you have to do a constitution check. And may God have mercy on your fortitude. Okay, so by 2262, at least 2 Yolu had begun training as on Lashak. Okay, fair. But is there anything here for us to actually work with? Because like the other guy in the Muay, there wasn't anything there. They are bipedal humanoids in appearance and feature high foreheads, short triangular noses with elongated nostrils, ears, and a distinctive gap that runs the center of their forehead to the bridge of the nose. Like the humans, they are 4-limb bipeds with 5 digits on each hand, though their feet had no toes. This is all cosmetic, though. They can perceive a much wider visible spectrum than humans and can see very well in the dark. So they have dark vision. That's useful. They reproduce like many other species, but that's not important. Gestation is 7 months, don't care. The Yolu population consists of an unusually large population or proportion of telepaths and possesses a number of mystic abilities such as reading auras that contribute to the continue to be incomprehensible to other races. Okay, now we have enough. Why do we have enough? I'll tell you why. So we're going to come over here and we're going to say Yolu. Ability modifiers. +2 to any. There is nothing that says that they are special in any way physically. They're going to get 4 hit points. Their size is going to be medium. Their type is going to be humanoid. Racial features, though. Dark vision. 60 feet. Which is, generally speaking, more than enough. But dark vision, 60 feet is good. And racial features. We're going to go backwards on this one. We're going to go back to the Hayek, because remember, the Hayek also had an unusually high number of telepaths in their species. So we're just going to copy that from the Hayak and paste it up here for the Yolu. And again, we haven't done the telepath module yet, so we don't know exactly what this means yet. However, as I pointed this out on the previous stream, I believe, psychic or telepathic ability is going to be a lot like psyker ability in 40K. And just as a quick little reminder on that one, let me go ahead and open up the 40K module. So here's how the 40K module worked. And let me just click on this. Okay, switching over to the 40K module for a moment. We had up here Psychers. Okay? Now, the way this was going to work is that every living being in the warp, with the exception of the Tyranids, and that's not even necessarily true either, because the Tyranids technically have a presence in the warp. The problem is they have too much of a presence in the warp. So everybody except for the Omegas has a presence in the warp, and the Necrons, I think. Pretty sure the Necrons have no presence in the warp either. So, what happens? Since everyone has some presence in the warp in general, everybody is going to roll on this table. On character creation. It's a D1000 roll, with the vast majority being in the row category, which means that you have basically no sensitivity. That doesn't mean you don't exist there. It just means that you don't have any significant ability. You can't even light a candle. Once you get into the pies, that changes. Pies might be, just lucky. And then obviously they go up. But the point is that everybody is going to roll on this table when they make a Warhammer 40K character. And if you roll lucky enough, you may end up in anything other than the yellow. If you're lucky. If you consider that lucky, actually. Because it's not. And I even have the distributions over here. So the purples, which is your alphas through deltas, 1%. Your blues, which is your epsilons and zetas, 1.1%. Your cyans, 2.4%. Your greens, 7.5%. The yellows, 85.2%, the vast majority. Your oranges, who have a weakened presence, are only 2.7%, and your omegas are 0.1%. Mostly because people will kill omegas on sight. We're going to have a similar module for telepaths, because everybody's going to get to roll on it. Very few people will have any telepathic ability, but everybody gets a chance. And so what we're going to be doing is not only will we be rolling on that, but we will be giving some kind of additional information or additional bonus to the Yolu and the Hayak. So if it's only like a 10% chance of becoming a telepath, they're going to get a bonus that'll make it like 11 or 12%. I'm not sure yet. We're not there yet. But that's going to be the idea. Okay, moving on though. Because we are done with the Yolu. The last one is, of course, the Vree. And PC says, except for the Narn. That is only partially true. See, the reason why the Narn have no telepaths is because all the people that had the telepath gene were wiped out. Prior to that, however, they had, as far as we know, an equivalent chance of becoming a telepath as any other race. So when we say except for the Narn, that depends heavily on the time period that we're playing. Anything prior to the previous Shadow War will have Narn telepaths. And we already know that we can simply play during any era by turning certain races off and on. We can play a game prior to the second, or the previous Shadow War by simply turning off all the League races, turning off humans, probably turning off the Dilgar, but I don't know. Probably turning off the Dilgar. It's basically going to be the Minbari and the Shadows and the Vorlons. Pretty much. But hey, you know what? I'm a good writer. I'm sure that I can work something out if you wanted to play a telepathic Narn during that time period. I am really good at what I do. Okay, moving on though. And it's a shame that JP's not here because we're doing the Vree. So, the Vree are a humanoid species, one of the younger races. They are a member of the League of Unlighted Worlds, later the Alliance. They do have a home world. Also, they look funny. Now, what about biology? They are relatively small humanoid beings with large black eyes, bulbous heads, smooth hairless skin. Despite their slight frame, they are very tough. Their bodies are entirely supported by cartilage and muscle. They appear similar to, but are distinct from, both the Strebe and the Shadow Surgeons. Two races who serve the Shadows. However, I mean, there's not a whole lot there for me to work with. Vree society is organized into guilds, which is great. Marriages are only between members of the same guild. But I mean, this is it. They're only even in 2 episodes. They're in Grail and they're in Survivors. However, if I don't do it, JP's gonna pitch a fit, so I guess I gotta do it. Sure, we can do it. It'll be pretty easy. They're gonna be the Vree. Their ability modifiers, it does say they're incredibly tough. So, +2 Constitution. Simple. 4 hit points, size is going to be... it does say they're on the smaller side. Do we make them small? It says relatively small. However, when they say small, they basically mean half the size. So if your standard medium-sized creature is about 6 feet tall, your typical small-sized creature is about 3 feet tall. And they're obviously taller than that, so they're going to be medium size. Their type is humanoid. Now, racial features. There is not a whole lot to, there's not a whole lot here to say about them, and so the only thing I really have to go on here is the visual gag they gave us. The fact is that this picture right here, okay? This picture was taken from the episode Grail. I know that episode because I love that episode. And the episode starts off in the Babylon 5 courtroom. There is somebody who is accusing that alien right there, specifically that alien's grandfather, of abducting their grandfather. Which is a funny premise, and I'll give it to you. However, when the judge asks, "How do you plead?" the Vree simply holds up that. Now, that would imply to me that, number one, they're responsible for the crop circles, but number two, they may not have a vocal language. They may be completely mute, and everything has to be translated through drawing, which I think would actually make them kind of unique. And so that's what I'm going to do. Racial features, they're going to be mute. No spoken language. That means that they cannot use voice commands, they cannot tell you anything. They will have to find some other way to communicate. Which, like I said, I think it's weird, but sometimes weird is good. Alright, now, that being said, we are done with the League worlds now. Which means that there's only 2 left to do. Because we're not doing the first ones, we're not doing the Firstborn, we're not doing the third Space Aliens, and we're not doing the Hand either. Which means there's only 2 left. We'll go ahead and we'll expand that. And this is going to get interesting. Remember how I said there's going to be spoilers? Well, guess what? Here be the spoilers. Because next up is the Vorlon. Now, the Vorlon have a ton more detail about them than we had for the other ones. So let's get to reading. The Vorlons are one of the oldest sentient races in the galaxy who, along with the other races that developed about the same time, are known as the First Ones. Biology. This is where things are going to get interesting. And already, like right here, it says life form type. Radially symmetrical multiped. But let's see what we can find out. When in the presence of other races, Vorlons often wear encounter suits. As such, few people have ever seen what a Vorlon actually looks like. Since Vorlons are capable of surviving in an oxygen atmosphere, the suits are used entirely to hide their appearance. Apart from allowing them to hide their appearance, encounter suits allow them to navigate the environment more easily, interact with others, and conduct business as necessary. Vorlon encounter suits are equipped with a language translation device that transforms their unique language into more common tongues. The Vorlon speech sounds like a sequence of overlapping musical tones, chirps, and chimes. The physiological mechanism they have to make the sound is unknown. Now, a Vorlon's true appearance is that of a bioluminescent, partially translucent, radially symmetrical, multi-tentacled creature, loosely resembling an octopus. Though they may appear insubstantial, they are in fact physical life forms. So, right there we have something interesting. They are basically flying octopuses, but they are solid octopuses, no matter what they might look like. Due to their tampering in the development of many other galaxies' younger species, Vorlons appear in the guise of divine beings, although their appearance can vary greatly depending on the species and the individual's own history and mythology. This mass yet individualized hallucination is accomplished by way of actively projecting a telepathic image, which is used on a great number of people and requires a significant effort for a Vorlon and can be a great strain. To most beings, this takes the form of a being of light from their own cultural mythology. Some examples include the angels and Shalako spirits of Earth cultures, Droshala for the Drazi, Jalan for the Narn, and Valeria for the Minbari. One of the reasons for the encounter suit is to prevent the Vorlon from being seen directly and requiring this kind of telepathic projection. The interpersonal sociology of Vorlon seems to be dependent on their telepathy. They're all connected telepathically, though to what extent their thoughts are shared or hidden remains a mystery. Vorlons who have their own ships also have a telepathic connection with those vessels. Very soon after the death of Kosh, the Vorlon High Council was aware of the tragedy. It is unknown whether they were made aware because of some telepathic bond, or whether they were contacted by Kosh's ship, who would have known immediately of its master's demise. The true extent of their telepathic abilities is unknown. However, it has been known to have a strong influence when a person's mind is in an altered state, such as sleeping, dreaming, exhausted, or in a heightened state of awareness. It is for this reason that their presence is often associated with visions and dream imagery. They are known to have lived incredibly long lives. At the time of his death in 2260, Kosh was among the older members of the species and was old enough to have known Valen. Now, by the lore of Babylon 5, that means that he was at least 1,000 years old. So, Vorlons have demonstrated telekinetic abilities as well, including self-propelled flight in a standard gravity environment. So, if we're going to have Vorlons, we'll probably need to add a telekinetic aspect to the telepathy thing as well. Now, long history, we're not going to get into it. We have plenty to go on for biology, and yes, we're going to be doing this. So, ability modifiers. The thing is, I don't really know what to give them, because we don't really see them physically do anything. Are they weaker than anybody else? We don't know. Are they stronger than anyone else? We also don't know. Are they tougher than anybody else? That is interesting, because there is a scene in Babylon 5 where people actually do fight a Vorlon. Now, it's after Kosh's death, when they have a new ambassador, and the new ambassador is not friendly. And when they decide that, in order to wage a war, the ambassador needs to be off the station. Well, to put this in terms that we can work with, in order to actually fight the Vorlon, they lured the Vorlon into a trap. And then they electrocuted the Vorlon with power from the station's reactor. And that pretty much did nothing but piss it off. They then chose to fire at it with PPGs, which the Vorlon did not seem to care about. I mean, literally, it was floating up there, doing its thing. They're shooting at it with PPGs, and it doesn't seem to notice. Now, could it be that it actually didn't notice, or could it just be that it was formulating a plan, and it just wasn't in too much of a hurry? I don't know, and that's part of the problem. So I don't necessarily know how we're going to do this. PC Unicorn says, or considering who Valen ultimately was, at least 3. Yes, technically, Kosh knew all the Valens. Except they're not technically all Valens. They're all the one. But there is only one Valen. Okay? And that's confusing. But then again, that's Minbari, so it fits. I am inclined to do something unique for the Vorlons. And that is, I'm going to give them a bunch of bonuses. I'm going to give them a +2 to strength. Now, whether that's because they can or they choose not to, I don't know. I'm going to give them a +2 to dexterity. They can fly. They naturally exist in a 3D environment. I'm going to give them a +2 to constitution. I'm going to give them a +2 to intelligence. Actually, you know what? The reason I was going through this is because I was not going to give them a +2 in charisma. But you know what? No, hold on. It's going to be a +2 to all. They are just better. Period. Now, why am I giving them a +2 to charisma when, like, a lot of people either find them off-putting or outright hate them? Because they have literally engineered people, entire species, to love them. Does an individual person seeing a Vorlon in an encounter suit find them off-putting? Yes. And then, if that same Vorlon were to leave the encounter suit, that person would kneel down and worship them. Their charisma doesn't necessarily come from their natural ability. This is an interesting case of where their charisma comes from the fact that they have engineered that charisma. Okay, hit points. Given how much punishment it took to kill a Vorlon, I'm going to give him at least a 6. It also helps that pretty much any Vorlon you see has long since hit level 20. Size. This is hard. This is hard because when we see the Vorlon outside of its encounter suit, which is this picture right here, actually, I can't really make it bigger for you. I can't even make it bigger for me. You know what? It's kind of hard to determine what is presentation and what is the actual body. I'm going to say they're still medium. And that actually is just convenient. If I say that they're medium, that also means that I don't need to worry about how do I fit a large creature into a medium-sized encounter suit. Type. The hell do I call these guys? Because they're not humanoids. Alright, we have to actually look into some stuff here. We're going to come down to aliens, template graphs, creature types. So, creature types. We have aberrations, animals, constructs, dragons, fae, humanoid, magical beast, monstrous humanoid, ooze, outsider, plant, undead, and vermin. Let's see what actually fits for us. There are some things that we can rule out right off the bat. Not an animal, not a construct, not a dragon, not a fae. Probably not humanoid. Maybe a magical beast? Maybe a monstrous humanoid, but I'm not sure. They're not an ooze. They could be an outsider. They're not a plant, they're not undead, they're not vermin. So, let's take a look at the aberration. So, an aberration has bizarre anatomy, strange abilities, an alien mindset, or any combination of the three. Does that or does that not describe a Vorlon? We already know that they're a multiped, and that they have some kind of physical body surrounded by energy tentacles or whatever it happens to be. I think that's pretty much how we're going to have to go on this one. Traits: they get a natural dark vision of 60 feet and a +2 to saving throws. Okay. Aberration. Alright. Now, next. So, racial features. They have a fly speed. Okay? They have a fly speed. And we know that because we've actually watched them fly. Secondly, we have to get into the, we have to get into what they do to other people. So, Kosh appearing as Drashala, Kosh appearing as Valeria, Kosh appearing as Jalan. And, I mean, he appeared as an angel. It says Kosh appearing as a human being of light. Basically just an angel. The fact is that as soon as they are seen, they have the ability to... Well, not necessarily the ability, but they do invade the minds of everybody around them. Now, I have something for this. When we get into universal monster rules, alien presence. I was going to go for frightful presence, but I might have to go with that one. So, yeah, frightful presence. Or alien presence. Let's do the alien presence first. The alien's mere presence can have a deleterious effect on those nearby. It can activate this ability as part of an action, so it can be activated. That's right there along with That's right there along with that. It can activate this ability as part of making an attack or as a move action, but it can only activate it once per round. It has a range of 30 feet. This aura functions as frightful presence. But instead of imposing the shaken condition on creatures that fail, it instead imposes the listed condition. Okay, so I can choose what condition that I want to do. So we'll look at conditions afterwards. The duration is 5d6 rounds, unless the ability says otherwise. Once an opponent has been exposed to the creature's alien presence, it cannot be affected by the same creature's presence for 24 hours. This is an emotion, fear, mind-affecting, and sensory-dependent effect. Okay. Alien presence. But, what is it going to be? We're going to look at conditions. Alright, conditions. Not going to be asleep. Not going to be bleeding. Not going to be blinded. Not going to be broken. No, because everybody looks at these things with awe. Which means that we're probably going to be looking at... fascinated. So you are entranced. While you have the fascinated condition, you stand or sit quietly, taking no actions other than to pay attention to the fascinating effect for as long as the effect lasts. You take a -4 penalty on any skill checks made passively in response to to others' actions, such as perception checks. Any potential threat, such as a hostile creature approaching, grants you a new saving throw against the fascination. Any obvious threat, such as somebody drawing a weapon, casting a spell, aiming a ranged weapon at you, automatically ends the condition. An ally can shake you free of the effect and end this condition as a standard action. So that's what it's going to be. It's going to be alien presence Fascinated. Now, what is the DC for it? It's going to be a will DC. However, I don't necessarily know what it is. And I'm sitting here thinking about it, and it's like, nobody really... Here's the weird thing. When Kosh did it in the show, nobody was unaffected by it. The only person who was maybe unaffected by it was Ambassador Malari. However, it is implied that he saw something, he just didn't want to share what he saw. Everybody was affected. But nobody also tried to resist it either. Everybody looked because everybody wanted to look. There's also the case of the other Vorlon. And I know I'm leaving some long pause in there, but my brain is working really hard right now. When they tried to kill the other Vorlon, I think his name was Alkesh. This didn't happen. They used the electricity to break open his environment suit, and then, when he was finally free, nobody saw anything special, which means that this is absolutely an intentional effect. And if he did try, everybody resisted it. So I think that the will DC is actually probably pretty low. I think. I have an idea. Here. Who would be the best class with, probably a Mystic, actually. We're not using the Mystic, but the Mystic is going to have a good will save and garbage everything else. A Mystic at level 20 is going to have a plus 12. If I wanted to do that... If I wanted the Mystic to have a roughly coin toss chance of resisting it, with no will or no wisdom bonus at all, that means that at level 20, it'd be 10 plus 12 would be 22. And if that's how that works, 22 minus that would be 2 plus... Yeah. So the DC is going to be 2 plus level. That means that at level 1, it's a DC 3, not a big deal. Pretty much everybody would see through it, and so Vorlon would have to be really careful not to, trip up on that. At level 20, it's a DC 22, and so... pretty much everybody's going to struggle against that one. At least that's my thinking right now. Unless, of course, we want to make it so that at level 20 it's basically impossible. However, as I pointed out, if this was a guaranteed to work every time ability, then when they went after the second Vorlon, it would have used that against the other soldiers and simply stopped them. So we have to assume that if they didn't use it, there's probably a reason why. Alright then, so we've got that. Now, so we got the fly speed, we got their alien presence. What is the other thing that makes them unique? Their telepathy. Every single Vorlon is telepathic. They have telepathy. Every single one of them. The only question is, how strong? And to be fair, I don't think that we've ever seen a Vorlon that had less than just, like, immense telepathy. We've never seen anybody try to resist Vorlon telepathy. It's something else. Then there's telekinesis. Now, telekinesis we only ever saw once, as far as I know, from a Vorlon. And I wonder if I can pull that up. I mean, that right there, that is an actual human telekinetic. Extremely rare. Known telekinetics, we've got those. However, yeah. It says right here, though, Ambassador Kosh lifted and choked President Sheridan in the hallway when Sheridan provoked him into helping him win one battle against the Shadows. I was hoping to find a picture of that, but I don't have it. The point is, though, that in the scene, Sheridan is asking for help, and Kosh says no. And Kosh, being a Vorlon, of course, does not elaborate, because children are not owed an explanation. And that's exactly how the Vorlons see literally every other race. They are children. They need to be pampered, they need to be guided, and sometimes they need to be disciplined. And when that came, Kosh did two things. Number one is the first thing that Kosh did is telekinetically cut Sheridan. Not a big cut, just a little one right across the face. But the fact that it could be done in the first place is important. And secondly, as it says right here, Kosh lifted and choked him in the hallway. Specifically, just lifted him up and threw him against a wall and held him there. It is... I think that we can make an assumption here that if Sheridan could have gotten up and pushed back against the telekinesis, he would have. Which means that Kosh's telekinesis, and again, we do not know if Kosh was special, if he was stronger or weaker, so we have to use him as the only baseline we have. His telekinesis was stronger than Sheridan's strength. Now, what does that mean for us? If we come down here to spells, we'll go to the list of all spells because telekinesis, I believe, is in here. Scroll down, scroll down, scroll down, scroll up. T's, T-E's, telekinesis. Here we go. So, the description says, you move an object or creatures by concentrating on them. Depending on the desired effect, choose one from below. This spell can perform a variety of combat maneuvers, provide a gentle, sustained force, or exert a single, short, violent thrust. So, first off, combat maneuver. Once per round, you can use telekinesis to perform a ranged attack that acts as a bull rush, disarm, grapple, including pin. Right there is what he did to Sheridan. Or a trip combat maneuver. Resolve these attempts as normal, but use your caster level plus your key ability score modifier as your attack bonus. No saving throw is allowed against these attempts, but the spell resistance applies normally. This version of the spell can last one round per caster level, but it ends if you cease concentrating. Which again is what we see. Duration, concentration. Up to one round per level. Now, assuming that Kosh is a level 20 ambassador, probably an envoy, that's 20 rounds. That's 2 whole minutes. A sustained force allows you to move an object of up to 24 or 25 pounds or 2 bulk per caster level. Well, let's see. 25 pounds, if we multiply that by 4 is 100, so if we divide 20 by 4, that's 5. And then if we just multiply 5 by 100, that's 500 pounds. So, yeah, 500 pounds of force that Kosh could probably move with his telekinesis. Or the violent thrust. You can expend the spell energy can be spent in a single round. You hurl up to 15 objects or creatures that are within range, no two of which can be more than 10 feet apart. Forward in any direction within 150 feet of all objects, you can hurl up to 400 pounds or 40 bulk. You must make an attack roll, 1 per creature or object thrown, to hit the target with the items, using your base attack bonus plus your key ability score. It deals... all objects damage ranging from 1 damage per 25 pounds, or 2 bulk, to 1d10 damage per 25 pounds or 2 bulk for extremely dangerous objects. Regardless of the numbers, point is that this is telekinesis, and I'm pretty sure this is what Kosh was capable of. So, telekinesis per spell. We'll put that on there. Now, as far as the telepathy goes, I'm pretty sure we looked at telepathy before. The telepathy here says you can mentally communicate with any other creature within 100 feet that has a language. It's possible to address multiple creatures at once. Yeah, we looked at this before. When we do telepathy as a module, it will have more abilities than that, because telepaths in Babylon 5 can do a lot more. I do believe, however, that this is actually going to work out well for us, because we're going to have our own telepathy module. If you max out on telepathy, like the highest level of telepathy will probably be telepathy plus telekinesis. So you will automatically be on the scale a P12, and then you'll get telekinesis on top of it. And then that telekinesis can be based on, say, your level. Because that's what everything else here was based on. It says here, combat maneuver once per round. You can do this. You resolve these attempts as normal, but your caster level plus your key ability score modifier as your attack bonus. Which means that if you're like a level 1, then your caster level is only going to be 1, plus your key ability score modifier, which means you might get like a +5, maybe, on the high side. Also, no more than 25 pounds or 2 bulk per caster level, so like you get 25 pounds of telekinesis. That's cool. I think that'll work out really well, and we'll get to that when the time comes. So, I think that does it for a Vorlon, actually. And I think that looks really good. It's a +2 to all because they are just better in pretty much every way. They are tougher, which was why they have the more hit points, but they're still a medium-sized aberration. They fly, they have an alien presence, guaranteed telepathy, and telekinesis. I think it looks good. And since nobody else is complaining, I think that you think it looks good too. So, I'm pretty much out of time, so this is where I'm going to have to end it today. We still have the shadows to go through, though. However, that should not be a big problem. I don't see us spending too long on the shadows. They have some very interesting abilities. However, I don't think they're going to be too difficult. So they are different. They're an insectoid hexaped. Biology, they look like a cross between a spider and a praying mantis. They have many eyes, which is great, and the ability to cloak themselves from most visible wavelengths. They can, however, sometimes be seen as figures of static in the upper end of the infrared spectrum. But that's really all we've got for the shadows. However, there are certain assumptions that we can safely make about them. At least I'm pretty sure there's certain assumptions we can safely make about them. And so we'll be able to put them together. We have more on their ideology, their government society, their technology. We'll get into them later, though. And then after that, if we go back to the overview for a moment, after we finished that, we were looking at possible locations in planet profiles. That's a question mark. We may. And we may because I don't know if I necessarily really have to, or if that's something that I can do situationally on the side. So we'll think about locations, but otherwise, if we don't do locations, we get to move on to ships. And ships is going to be fun, but it also probably not going to take too long because the list of ships was kind of small. So, yeah. We'll probably be doing ships next time. Maybe we'll do the Babylon 5 station as well. We might start with the Babylon station, actually. We'll do that. We'll knock out the shadows first, then we'll do maybe the Babylon 5 station, then ships. Sound good? Sounds good to me. Okay, so that being said, we're going to go ahead. I'm going to get out of here. I'm going to let you guys go for the day. So we made some good progress. We have a good plan. I'm now eager to get back here and do more. Of course, I'm always eager to get back here and do more. So I will simply say thank you for coming. Don't forget, if you're not subscribed, subscribe to this channel. Hit the bell icon, that way you get notified every time these videos come out. If you know somebody else who's also into Babylon 5 or Starfinder in general, although Starfinder 2 is coming, it's not here yet, but it is coming. I may have to learn that one really quick. Share this video with them, though, if they're interested at all. Otherwise, if you just like me, you like what I'm doing, leave a like on the video, leave a comment down below. If you're going to go ahead and leave a comment down below, though, might I suggest you go ahead and join the Discord. We have one. It's nice over there. And you can join it, and you can talk to us there, and if you want to play, go to the Behind the Screen channel. Let me know what game you want to play there, and what your availability is. As soon as I have enough people for a game, we will play. And I already have interest in the Babylon 5 game. I already have interest in the Pokemon game. So I just need a few more people for Pokemon and Babylon 5. So, come join us there. I hope to see you there. I hope to see you back here next week when we continue with locations and ships. And until then, take care.